Good evening, everyone. My name is Annette, and I'm here with my interpreting partners, Roy and Sitari, to support with language access tonight. I will be making this announcement in English and in Spanish, and then my colleagues in their respective languages. Hola, mi nombre es Annette y estoy aquí con mis compañeros de interpretación, Roy y Sitari, para apoyar con la interpretación. Haré este anuncio en español e inglés y después pasaré la palabra a mis colegas para que interpreten en su idioma. We invite everyone to select their language of choice and be part of this multilingual space tonight. Please select English if you have limited Spanish, Khmer, or Tagalog proficiency. This way you will be able to hear the interpreters into English. For those of you who will be speaking in English, please remember to speak slower than normal because we do use 30% more words in Spanish to convey the message from English. Bilingual presenters, please be sure to be in the channel that corresponds to the language you are speaking. If you are on your computer, at the bottom you will see a little white globe that says interpretation. Put a check mark on English to hear the message in English. If you're on your cell phone or tablet, locate the three dots on your phone or tablet. Put a check mark on English and hit done. This last step is very important to activate and begin the interpretation. Unfortunately, interpretation will not work on Chromebooks or if you are dialing into the meeting on a phone. Please make sure to update your Zoom app as well. Reminder, if you see an interpreter raise their hand, please make sure to speak slower. Les invitamos a todos a seleccionar su idioma de preferencia para formar parte de este espacio multilingüe. Seleccione español o Spanish si está limitado en su dominio del inglés, Khmer o Tagalog. De esta manera podrá escuchar a los intérpretes al español. Si está en su computadora, busque el globo blanco en la parte inferior de su pantalla que dice interpretación, donde podrá seleccionar Spanish para español. Ponga una palomita en español para poder escuchar al español. Si está usando su celular o tableta, ubique los tres puntitos y ponga una palomita en español y seleccione Done o Finalizar. Este último paso es muy importante para activar la interpretación. I'll pass the mic to Roy now. Thank you.
Okay. Magandang gabi. Inaanyayahan namin kayong piliin ang inyong wika at maging bahagi nitong espasyo ng iba't ibang wika. Piliin ang Tagalog o Filipino kung kayo ay may limitadong kaalaman sa Ingles, Espanyol at Khmer. Sa ganitong paraan, maaari niyong marinig ang mga tagasalin sa iba't ibang wika sa Tagalog. Kung kayo ay nasa computer, sa ibaba makikita nyo ang globe na nagsasabing interpretation. Lagyan ng check ang Tagalog nang marinig ang buong presentasyon sa Tagalog. Kung kayo ay nasa cellphone o tablet, hanapin ang tatlong tuldok at lagyan ng check ang Tagalog at i-click ang done. Siguraduhin na i-click ang done dahil dito magsisimula ang pagsalin. Paalala lamang, ang pagsalin ay hindi gagana sa Chromebook o kung kayo ay tatawag para sumali sa meeting. Siguraduhin na ang inyong version ng Zoom ay bago. Mayroon mga komento mula sa publiko at pagkatapos ng meeting, anumang katanungan sa pagsali, siguraduhin ilagay ito sa chat. I pass it now to Sitari for the Khmer instructions.
ជំរាបសួរ យើងសូមអញ្ជើញអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាជ្រើសរើសភាសាដែលអ្នកចង់ស្ដាប់នេះគឺជាផ្នែកមួយនៃពហុភាសាសូមជ្រើសរើសភាសាខ្មែរប្រសិនបើអ្នកមានកម្រិតភាសាអង់គ្លេសអេស្ប៉ាញនិងភាសាកាតាឡុងវិធីនេះអ្នកនឹងអាចស្ដាប់អ្នកបកប្រែភាសាពីភាសាផ្សេងៗមកជាភាសាខ្មែរបានប្រសិនបើអ្នកប្រើកុំព្យូទ័ររបស់អ្នកសូមមើលនៅក្នុងនឹងមានរូបផែនដីដែលនិយាយថាការបកប្រែភាសាសូម check នៅលើភាសាខ្មែរដើម្បីស្ដាប់ការប្រជុំជាភាសាខ្មែរប្រសិនបើអ្នកប្រើទូរស័ព្ទដៃឬ tablet របស់អ្នកសូមមើលនៅលើទីតាំងចំណុច3ហើយចុចនៅលើភាសាខ្មែររួចហើយអាចចាប់ផ្ដើមស្ដាប់ការបកប្រែភាសាគួរឲ្យស្ដាយការបកប្រែភាសានេះមិនដំណើរការជាមួយ Chromebook ឬក៏ការហៅទូរស័ព្ទមកនោះទេសូមប្រាកដថា Zoom របស់អ្នកត្រូវ update ឲ្យទាន់សម័យប្រសិនបើមានសំណួរអ្វីអំពីការបកប្រែភាសាសូមសរសេរនៅក្នុង chat សូមអរគុណ Please go ahead and the presenter please start the meeting.
Everybody should be able to select their language now. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Professional Artist Fellowship Workshop and the Creative Economy Grant Workshop. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm going to get started, but if you all would like to write your names in the chat, just so everybody knows who's here and we can say hi to one another. If you can keep your microphones muted during the presentation, and I will be taking questions at the end. You can also type questions in the chat and we will try and get to them at the end, or if I can see them as we go during the presentation. So this is the Professional Artist Fellowship Workshop. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to our interpreters for helping make this workshop accessible to everyone. We'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that we live and work on the traditional and sacred lands of the Tongva, Kizh, Akshiman, and Chumash, and the many other indigenous groups who call these grounds home. We honor and extend our gratitude to all of the original people still living in this region. So in this workshop, I'm going to be going over mostly the Professional Artist Fellowship, but I will briefly touch on the other grant opportunities that we have. So in addition to the fellowship, we have the Community Projects Grant, Operating Grants 1 and 2, and those are our annual grants. And then we also have quarterly micro grants. So you can only apply to one annual grant category. If you're a professional working artist, it would be the fellowship. If you're a community group or someone doing a project within the community, that would be the Community Projects Grant that you would apply for. And if you're a larger organization, it would be Operating Grant 1 and 2, and I'll go into a little bit more detail. Micro grants are quarterly, and those are project-based, or also we provide professional development if you would like to take a workshop or attend some sort of conference that would further your career as an artist or an arts administrator. And those grants, the last grant cycle just ended on May 15th, but they are quarterly. You can check out our website. I'm going to start with the Community Projects Grant, and this grant supports the exemplary artistic, cultural, and arts educational projects of arts and cultural organizations in Long Beach. Through the Community Projects Grant Program, the Arts Council partners with arts and cultural organizations. And I'm going to just link to the presentation that's on our YouTube channel that we did for the Community Project grant, so that everybody, if anybody wants to attend that, oh, sorry, the link is not working. I will post that at the end. So if you'd like to go onto our YouTube channel, you can see the full presentation for the Community Projects Grant. We also have operating grants, which are for larger organizations. The organizations must have an annual budget of $250,000 or above for operating 1 and $1 million and above for operating 2. So those grants are for the larger arts and cultural organizations in Long Beach. And now the Professional Artist Fellowship. The Arts Council for Long Beach recognizes exemplary Long Beach artists for their recent work through the Professional Artist Fellowship Awards. We look at this as somewhat of the Artist of the Year. The artists that are selected for the fellowship will have a lot of opportunities that year that they're applying. Beyond just the fellowship opportunity, we do provide additional opportunities that are usually paid opportunities throughout that year of the fellowship. And there's also an exhibition at the end of the year. This year it'll be at the Billie Jean King Library in September. So those are some of the benefits of being a Professional Artist Fellow, is that you are on sort of a qualified artist list. And so those fellows will be given many, many opportunities throughout that year. So if this is a year that you're not open to opportunities, I would recommend waiting to apply for the fellowship, because there will be a lot of opportunities coming through that year. So how do we determine the funds? The Arts Council for Long Beach staff will review all of the applications, make sure that they meet eligibility requirements and that they're complete and ready to go to the panel. The Arts Council convenes grant panels in the summer, and those panels are made up of 5 members. 4 are members of the community that are experts in the field. The panel changes every year, so it's different panelists each year. And then there's 1 Arts Council board member on each panel. So it's community members and 1 board member who are scoring the applications and ranking them and making recommendations for funding. It is not Arts Council staff that's on these applications. Arts Council staff takes notes and reports back to allocations and to the board of directors. Those funding recommendations made during the panel are reviewed by the Arts Council's allocations committee. The allocations committee reviews the scores and the rankings and brings recommendations to the board of directors. The board will then ratify the funding levels, and all grants must be approved by the board of directors. The applicants will be notified once the Arts Council receives our contract with the City of Long Beach. So the city actually votes on this funding in September, so we don't make any grant announcements anytime before November. Usually it's sometime around December and has been occasionally as late as February, depending on when we receive our contract with the city. There's a question about rewatching the meeting, and yes, we are recording it and we're going to be putting it up on our YouTube channel, and I'll put that at the end, hoping that everybody will subscribe to our channel as we need more subscribers to our YouTube channel. Eligibility requirements. So in order to be eligible for the fellowship, you must be an active Long Beach artist who lives, works, or actively creates in Long Beach. You have to have a physical presence in Long Beach. So either a business license, home or studio, proof of residence, or some sort of pay stubs to show that you are active in Long Beach. And if you need any further clarification, we can help out with that. And then must receive payment and/or serious critical recognition for some of their artistic services or products. So who is ineligible? Full-time students, with the exception of post-grad students with extensive professional experience and/or serious critical recognition. Recipients of an Arts Council for Long Beach Professional Artist Fellowship within the last 3 annual grant cycles, and any active employees, board members, or contract employees of the Arts Council for Long Beach. And again, applicants can only apply for 1 annual grant category. So it's either operating grant 1 or 2, community projects, or professional artist fellowship. Artistic disciplines that are eligible: visual arts, performing arts, audio arts, literary arts, media arts, multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary arts, and folk and traditional. We want to be very inclusive, so if you have an art form that's not listed here, please do reach out to us to make sure that it's eligible. This list is not intended to be exclusive, but just as a list of the categories that we've been using so far. So I'd also like to touch on this year's opportunity with the City of Long Beach. We've partnered to administer the Creative Economy Grants Program. So in addition to our funding that we receive for the Professional Artist Fellowship for our annual grants, there's additional funding through the Creative Economy Grants Program, and this is part of the Long Beach Recovery Act. And so during COVID-19 pandemic, the City of Long Beach is partnering with the Arts Council to administer this program. So the program includes $22,400 in funding allocated for the Professional Artist Fellowship grant. And so you will not need to submit a separate application. You'll be submitting the same application, and there'll be one question that asks if you agree to submit to both applications, both the Creative Economy grant and the fellowship. So as long as you check that box, you'll be applying for both grant programs. There are a few additional requirements for the Creative Economy grants. The funding needs to be expensed by December 31st, 2023. You need to keep records of expenditures, and there will be requirements to track and report key metrics related to the grant. A little bit more detail about that is that if there are any changes, we would need in writing no later than October 31st, 2023 for any changes for not being able to expend the grant funds. Awardees are responsible for documenting those expenditures, keeping receipts, checks, bill pays, payroll costs, things like that for the grant expenses. And then additional financial documentation, and awardees are responsible for tracking and reporting to the Arts Council for Long Beach key metrics related to the grant. And we will be providing that information at the time of the contract signature. In addition, priority will be given to, selection preference will be given to artists whose art uplifts and contributes to the Long Beach communities most impacted by COVID-19. I'm gonna put in the chat a link. You can see the visual that I put in the slide presentation, but here's a link to more details that show the COVID case rate. And if you select all time instead of the 7-day, you'll see which areas are most impacted. So 90806, 90805 on this map are the highest impacted. So selection preference will be given to artists who are proposing programs that are free and open to the public, and awardees must allow other Long Beach Recovery Act programs to participate in any public programming to maximize the collective impact of the recovery programs. So how is the application scored? How is funding determined? There are criteria for evaluation that the panelists are given before the grant panel, and they're asked to pre-score each application based on this criteria here. So there's 15 points possible for artistic achievement. So the artist's work reflects a high level of artistry or craftsmanship. Artist statement and resume and artistic samples relate to one another. Artist statement engages the reader. It explains goals, motivations of the artist's work, and is clear and well written. And then the second 15 points are available for artistic background, formal artistic training, apprenticeship, or practice in the discipline, several years of productivity and achievement in professional venues, and contribution to the local community. So workshops, exhibiting locally, etc. And I will say consistently that this contribution to the local community is something that seems to be very heavily weighted in the panelists' choices. So artists who show and demonstrate a commitment to the Long Beach community have tended to be the artist fellows that are selected most for the fellowship. So it's a total of 30 points. Definitely want to make sure in your application that you're highlighting what you're doing in the community. And we understand that there's not a lot of venues for a lot of different artistic disciplines in Long Beach. And so it's not necessarily about performing or exhibiting, but the commitment to the community. So what's in the application? What do you need to fill out this application? So there'll be a checklist in the beginning. You'll fill out your artist profile, which is questions about where you live, contact information, etc. You'll need to provide proof of residency. You'll need to provide an artist statement, a CV or resume, letters of recommendation, and artistic documentation and marketing materials. So for proof of residency, you'll need to submit one of the following: a valid California driver's license, valid federal, state, or local government issued ID, a utility bill within the last 90 days of the application deadline, business license, rental agreement, pay stubs, or any alternate proof of living, working, or actively creating in Long Beach. And we accept JPEG, PNG, or PDF format for that. You'll also need to provide an artist statement, and there's some very specific questions within the grant application. There's a maximum of 3,000 characters for this artist statement. So first, you're asked to describe your artistic practice, philosophy, and creative process, and highlight any major lines of artistic inquiry. What are your short and long-term goals and any proposed activity, performances, exhibitions, publications, and other community activities for the coming year? How will you grow as an artist through this fellowship? And then optional for traditional folk artists, you may add to the narrative. And then explaining how the project upholds or expands traditional ideas. I do want to be clear, this is not a project grant. This is awarding artists for their professional practice. There's no requirement to have a project, but we are asking how you would use the funds and what this fellowship would be doing to help you further your career. And then also, who is your target audience or community? So if you remember in the criteria for evaluation, how I talked about community impact, this is one section where you can highlight what your audience is and how you're engaging the Long Beach community. So what is your envisioned impact on your target audience or community in the near future? Do you have any existing relationships with the audience/community? And describe the ways in which you plan to reach selected audience or community. So there's a lot of resources. I want to provide one. GIST Inc. has a lot of resources, and I'm going to provide several links here for you. But here's in the chat, I put a link to their artist statement page, and they have a whole page with resources on how to write an artist statement. So you can go there and learn everything that you can about writing an artist statement, what that looks like, how to tailor it to a panelist versus a gallery. And so I've copied some of the language from their website here. But I encourage you to go to this link and look for more information. There's a lot of great resources for how to write an artist statement. Additionally, the Arts Council is providing one-on-one assistance with artist statements with current professional artist fellow Pamela K. Johnson. And we are almost full, so I would jump on this right now. I think last time I saw there were 2 slots left. So I posted the link right there for signing up. So if you'd like some one-on-one assistance on May 30th, please do sign up for that. And if there's a big demand, we can look into maybe doing another workshop with her. I'm not sure if that's going to be a possibility. So your resume or CV, this is where you'll include major works, exhibitions, projects, commissions, and collaborations with corresponding dates. Education, degrees, or apprenticeships for self-taught history with corresponding dates, and any related employment. And I want to stress related employment. This is not where you put your entire employment history. It's only employment related to your work as an artist. Any fellowships, prizes, grants, honors, and residencies that you've received. And again, there's a resource from GIST here that provides a lot of great information about how to create a resume or CV. They even have formats for different types of art and samples. So I recommend checking out that resource. Letters of recommendation. So we do require letters of recommendation. They're due at the time of the application. So you'll upload those either in JPEG, PNG, or PDF format into the application. The letter should indicate why the person supports you as an artist, how they've come to know your work, and what is their professional affiliation. The letter should be addressed to members of the panel, and letters should be on professional letterhead. I want to stress this professional letterhead. I have had panelists in the past that have deducted points because it wasn't on professional letterhead. Letters must be included in this application and can't be mailed. And so I'll also provide the link for letters of recommendation that GIST has. So we also have artistic documentation, and this is probably, I would say, one of, if not the most important part of your application. This is really what the panelists are looking for. They want to see or hear what your artistic work is like. This is your time to shine. So we want to make sure that this is the best, most polished part of your application. So depending on what type of artist you are, you may want to provide video or audio links. And so this would all be in one PDF that you upload with links that are hyperlinked, and definitely test out those links ahead of time and make sure that they work. And you're also going to want to number them in order of which files should be played and where it should be played. The panelists only have about 4 minutes or 5 minutes to look at all of this artistic documentation. So if it's a 10-minute video, you can say start at 4 minutes in and play for 2 minutes. So it's really important to be aware that the panelists won't have time to watch the whole amount. Some of them do, some of them take a lot of time. They'll even click on all of your links. If you put in links to your Instagram or your website, a lot of panelists are very thorough and will actually go and look at all of that. But some aren't, so just be aware that you want to put your best foot forward with that. File size should be no larger than 300 DPI and 5 megabytes or smaller. So where I've seen folks struggle is with that file size where the application doesn't submit properly because the file is too large or in the wrong file type. And then you also are providing, in addition to your artistic documentation, you're going to want to provide documentation that includes like publications that you've been, any kind of marketing materials, or it can be articles that have been written, any type of press coverage. And so you'll want to have that saved as a PDF as well. And that can be either links, or you can actually take screenshots. Let's say, for example, if it was a newspaper article, you could take a photo of that and put that into one PDF. Also exciting this year, we have Ashley Zachary, who is a local photographer and videographer, who is going to be providing headshots and photos of your artistic work. So we have this free resource to get great images of your work. And so I'm going to put the link to that again. We are getting low on slots, so sign up for that as soon as possible. But we have June 1st and June 3rd, where Ashley Zachary will be here doing photography work. So if you want headshots or any other artistic documentation that she's able to provide, we're offering appointments. Okay, so how do you apply for the fellowship? I'm going to put the application link here, and then I'm also going to switch my screen right now and actually go in and show you the actual application and talk about some tips and tricks for submitting. So give me 1 second as I switch to the application. So you're going to go to our website, artslb.org, and you can get to the application on our homepage right here, or also if you go under programs, grants, you can go under Professional Artist Fellowship, and that's how you'll get to application and additional information. So this is information about the fellowship. You can see the link to this workshop that's happening right now. The fellowship guidelines are right here. Also the addendum for the recovery grant. And then the third button is the actual application. But below that, you can also see our past fellows. So if you want to check out their work and see who's been funded in the past, this is this year's fellows. We also have our Go Make Something fellows from 2020, 2021, and professional artist fellows going way, way back. So you can check out who's been funded in the past and what their artistic documentation looks like. And then I'm going to just click here to go to the actual application. So it's a separate page. Within the application, we again have both of the guidelines for you to check out. There's some accordions that pop out, which has information about the fellowship, about how to save your submission. So you can do save and continue, but it's a link that you email to yourself, and the attachments do not save. So just keep that in mind. Also, when your application is submitted, it'll take you, if it's not submitted correctly, it'll take you back up to this page. And you may see this page and think that your application has been submitted, but if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see some red areas in the application, which mean that it has not actually successfully submitted. When it's successfully submitted, it'll take you to a separate page that says, thank you for submitting your application. You'll also get an email confirmation. So if you do not get an email confirmation, please, please, please email us before the deadline so we can figure out why your application did not fully submit. This is what the application looks like. As I said, there's a checklist to make sure that you have all of the documents that you need. Your proof of residency. This is your artist profile. So it's going to ask for your name. Please submit your legal name here. And then it's going to ask you for your artistic discipline. And if it's another one that's not listed, please just select other and describe. And do you have an artist registry profile? It's highly, highly recommended and actually a requirement for the recovery grant that you have your artist registry profile. So make sure that that's up to date. We have assistance for that. This is where you'll upload your proof of residency. You're going to click which council districts you reside in or that you've worked or exhibited in. And then you're going to certify that this is true and correct. And this is where you'll check the box for applying for the Long Beach Recovery Act funding. Here's the section where you'll provide your artist statement. You can just copy and paste into the box. Remember that it's a 3,000 character max for that box. We also ask for an arts equity and cultural inclusion statement. So you'll need to provide that as well. And that talks about your values. So include that. I can answer any questions about that if you'd like. This is where you'll upload your artist resume or CV. And again, that'll just be a direct upload in either JPEG, PNG, or PDF format. You'll upload your letters of recommendation here. And your artistic documentation and marketing materials will be uploaded here at the bottom. Then you'll hit submit, or you can hit save and continue if you want to start the application. If you hit save and continue, you'll see that it prompts you to either copy this link or email that link to yourself. And that link is where you're going to re-access your application and it'll be saved. Again, the attachments do not save, so you'll have to reattach things if you do save and continue. And it expires within 30 days. So I'm gonna stop sharing. And open it up to any questions that folks may have. If you want to type in the chat or raise your hand. The application is due June 10th. Let me just put up the slideshow again. Yeah, June 10th is when the application is due. Oh, you got the headshot link. Okay, great.
Hi, this is Ashley. I'm wondering about the CV length. So like in academia, they can get quite long. So is there kind of like a page limit or a page target that you think would be appropriate for the application?
That's a really great question. And we have seen ones that are, 5 pages long, and it does just get to be too lengthy. There isn't a requirement, but I would recommend no longer than 2, absolute max, like 3 pages. If it gets any longer than that, it's a little bit too much for the panelists.
Okay, thanks.
A question about letters of recommendation. So depending on your background, it could be from a professor that you've worked with or somebody that you've apprenticed with. It could be from somebody who's familiar with your work, either through, depending on what type of artistic discipline that you have. If it's a curator that has curated you in a show, they could write the letter of recommendation, or somebody who has worked with you for other artistic disciplines. So obviously the more impressive the person is, the better the letter of recommendation, but it just depends on what your history is and who you can easily get a letter from, because I know it can be difficult. So the question about if you presented as an employee of an organization, so was it your original work that was presented, or was it work for the company? Oh, yes, yes. You could list that for traditional dance. Yes, that makes sense, since that you did traditional dance for the company. And then as the head curator of a dance org, do I apply as an individual or as the org? So for the fellowship, it's only for individual artists. If you were going to apply as an org, that would be applying for the community projects grant. But again, you can only apply for one category. So you would need to decide if you wanted to apply for a community project grant or apply for yourself as an individual artist. For letters of recommendation, should these be from people in Long Beach or the most impressive person, even if they are not in Long Beach? I would say most impressive person, even if they're not in Long Beach, but I don't think it really matters too much. So the last grant panel, the panelists decided not to share the notes, so we don't have access to the notes from the last grant panel, Laura. But I can provide assistance by reviewing your application. For visual image, each PowerPoint can only have 1 image. No, so the PowerPoint is 10 images. And so it would be 1 PowerPoint with 10 images. And you could do detailed shots and the larger shot as well. Yes, the letter can come from someone on the board. No, I don't know if I understand the question on the same slide. Can you clarify?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, so my question is, I understand you have a maximum of 10 images in your PowerPoint pitch deck. Can one of those slides have a composite, let's say 2 or 3 of the same piece, or is it really just one picture per slide?
You could do one slide with 2 or 3. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
That's
No problem. Any other questions?
Hi, it's Mia. Really quickly, for the proof of residency, so I'm actually renting out studio time through Peerspace. Can I submit like the receipt, or how should I go about that?
Yes. So yeah, studio, or I think you have also, so it's live, work, or actively create. So if you have proof that, you know, either working, and I know that the company is performed, so some proof of that as well. So any proof that you're living, working, or actively creating in Long Beach.
Okay, thank you so much.
Lisa, you just mentioned that you can look over our applications. Is that before submittal, or if we get rejected, you'll look it over at that point? And how would we go about that?
Before submitting, but please do not do it the last week that the grant. I need at least a few days or a little bit longer, depending on how many requests I get. I'm going to put the email here. So for questions, email grants@artslb.org. And so you could do the save and continue and share that link with me, or if you have a Google Doc or something like that, I'm happy to look things over. And then also I provided the links to sign up with Pamela, who's doing one-on-ones for artist statement workshop.
Awesome. And do we need to put attention your name, or that email goes right to you?
I'm the one checking the email. So yeah, the grant.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
So your studio is in Long Beach. So we just need some, you know, the address. So like however you have proof of address. So it could be a rental agreement or any other proof of that being in Long Beach. Any other questions? I'll also stay on for a little bit if anybody has questions and wants to not ask them in front of everyone else.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Debbie, in regard to your question from last year, the board and panel decided not to share the feedback for all of the grants last year due to capacity. Any other questions? Yes, Debbie, I can provide assistance. So if you want to submit get your application ready, and I can review it for you before you submit.